52nd place overall last spring's IHSA Boys State Tennis Meet. We want to recognize them this month because they were on about 10, like I said, and this is multiple times that these young men have been down the state. So that's a great honor. Before we bring up the honorees, I just want to thank the parents and the family, because without them, without their support, their backing, getting people the place where you have to be, meals after events. I mean, who knows where these young men would have been, to be honest with you. So, first of all, I'd like to give a round of applause to the parents. Now for the honorees. First, Daniel Santoy. Why don't you come up and meet the board?
So you want to start with Dr. Lynch?
Good job.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nice job. Ready to find those reports?
Yep. Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
And Andrew Bolus.
Thanks for moving around for us.
Oh, you're welcome.
Congratulations.
Nice job, buddy. Long time no see.
Yeah. Congratulations.
And they should be excited because this year they're going to be playing on brand new courts.
Yeah, those would be nice.
So that'll be awesome. Again, a round of applause. Matt, a photo?
Yep. Okay.
That sermon's still rolling around in your head?
Yeah.
I read it this morning again.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Jill was on
Today is
the
Wednesday.
bus trip with me yesterday. The music played.
Did IVCC sponsor that?
Yeah. Yeah, we signed up probably 6
Did
months
Sue
ago.
go with you?
Yeah, not,
Maya?
no. Sue wasn't interested in the music thing. A long time ago, she said she wasn't. Sue Opsel will.
How's your dad?
Well, he's finally at the Veterans Home.
Okay.
He was supposed to have a
They really
comprehensive
enjoyed
medical
they
evaluation
really
today.
enjoyed
Okay.
the musical too, you know. More,
And that,
more
did that
their
happen to your
era,
knowledge?
You know, stuff.
I haven't been over there
Okay,
yet.
all right.
I mean,
I
it's
was over
very
there for
good music.
I was never
between
much
5.5
interested
and
in
6
like
hours.
No,
doing
but his
paperwork,
the
songs they did were
Yeah.
Yeah.
recognizable and good, and the music was good.
Yeah.
So
I can
it
only
was,
imagine
you
how
know, yeah.
difficult
But it
it's
was
been.
interesting 'cause he
You know,
learned
especially when it's like your
you know,
parents.
learned about his
Yeah.
life, and he had two
Well,
young
I was impressed with
kids that played him at very young ages. One real little, and then one, you know, middle school age or something, you know. And they were really good too. Absolutely incredible voice, you know. And those two young kids
Time did you
too.
get home
They
on
were just
Saturday?
sterling performances. So it was very good.
I went and saw Annie at the Mendota.
Did you?
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Very well done.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
Yeah.
No public comment?
So much of it.
You just have to ask.
Okay.
I really enjoy.
Public comment? Is there any public comment this evening? Okay, on the finance. I need a motion to approve the bills and payroll for Salle-Peru Township High School.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. Need a motion to approve the bills for the LP Area Career Center.
So moved.
Second?
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. Need a motion to approve the payroll report.
So moved.
Or second, whichever.
Okay. Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. A motion to approve the financial records.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. And a motion to approve the required board and employee travel expense reimbursements.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. Under correspondence, we have a thank you card for Barb, Dominic, and Joe Bassador for the beautiful flower arrangement in memory of Mr. Michael Bassador, father of Mr. Dominic Bassador. We also have a thank you letter for Mrs. Cheryl DePape for the Board of Education's donation to the LP Educational Foundation in memory of Mr. Michael Bassador, the father of Dominic Bassador. 7-3 under TIF reimbursements. The Village of North Utica, we have TIF 1 for $42,192.82. TIF 2 for $9,568.50. And TIF 4 for $13,942.37. And then the City of LaSalle, $102,979.93 for a total reimbursement of this month, $168,683.62. Board committees. Mr. Ferrari, Building Grounds.
Building and Grounds met a week ago, Monday, on August 7th. The LP Sports Complex Phase 2 continues to progress. We have several change orders that are going to require board approval, all of which were recommended by the committee, and you'll see that as item 10.7 under new business. The auto shop Phase 3 renovation is continuing. Windows are being installed in the classrooms first. The nurse's office renovation has been substantially completed. The stadium concrete repair has been completed and painted. These are the high priority areas, steps and railings. East Gym parking lot, lighting and banners. That is still in progress, trying to find out what the fault is with those arms that hold the banners. Storm drainage piping repair. The exterior work has been completed, and the rest of the project continues and to be in progress. Let's see, the main building exterior door replacement. Some of the doors have been completed, but that's another one that's still in progress as of last week. We discussed the main tennis court renovations, the ones just outside of the main building here, which are used primarily now for gym class. They're looking at eliminating 2 of the courts and adding 6 pickleball courts and resurfacing that area. That's just under discussion. It's a preliminary thing. If they have 6 pickleball courts and the rest of the tennis courts, it will be able to accommodate all the students in one gym class at a time for an activity. Transition house tree removal. The damaged tree is being removed. They are seeking bids on activity bus replacements. The state has raised the competitive bidding threshold. It used to be that we had to take out competitive bids on any item that was costing more than $25,000. Now the state has changed the rule, and it's going to be $35,000. There was some discussion about preliminary discussion about construction of a field house, and also there was further discussion of an item that we brought up earlier this year about the naming of the baseball field. And it was determined that under the school rules, a committee has to be appointed, and that is going to be item 10.12 on tonight's new business. And that's about it for the building and grounds.
Are there any questions? Okay, thank you. Finance Committee, Ms. Murbaugh?
We also met on Monday, August 7th. Obviously, we reviewed the monthly financials and the prepared documents like we do every time we meet. We talked about the 2024 district budget preparation. We got an update from the administration on how that's going and where we were at that point. We also recommended approval for the LP Sports Complex Phase 2 change orders, item 10.7, as Gary mentioned. We also recommend item 10.4, which is the Marco contract extension, which is an agenda item. At the time we met, we talked about the athletic training contract proposal and gave the administration some leeway to go back and talk about some things, and I believe that's on our
It is,
agenda item
yes.
here. We didn't have completed numbers at that time, but I personally recommend approval of
Yes.
that, I'll say. Then we had 2 new account recommendations, the Environmental Committee and the Cab Shop Committee, which is item 10.13. We discussed those and are recommending those for approval. We talked some informational items about the district fundraising procedures. They're kind of updating and changing some things regarding coordination of those items. We also discussed the competitive bidding threshold, which I won't reiterate because he just told you what that was about, but we discussed that too. And then the final thing we discussed is the early looking around for 4 activity buses. They're in need of repair. The repair bills are pretty high, and so we're looking to find 4 of them. I don't think it's been the easiest thing to do, but we're looking to find them, and we're on the hunt.
Yep.
So,
Okay,
and that was it.
thank you. Any questions? Okay. Policy Committee, Mrs. Alcorn?
Thank you. We met on Monday, August 7th. We are recommending all the policies that are in the second reading of the Press Policy 112, except the 4.60. We pulled that out, and we are going to revise that. So in the meeting, we saw the recommendation, and it is going to be that the committee will be called the Instructional Leadership Team, and we deleted all the current policy, 6.40, and Dr. Robleski will appoint a committee and a team to redo this data and procedures, policies and things, and that we will be getting that later. That committee will be assigned, and that will be doing. So we are recommending everything but the 6.40, and then we are recommending the new language that was there. I also would like to take the time I spent August 4th in Springfield at the IASB Resolutions Committee. There were 19 members from all the other districts in the state that met together to talk about 10 proposals that were presented before the committee. There were only two out of the 10 were recommended to adopt and to be voted on by the convention in Chicago in November. The others were do not present or do not adopt, and they were such things as mail-in voting for the convention, school polling places. Chicago has a great problem, I guess, some of the districts, and polling, that they bring all the equipment in, they take over the libraries for 3 days, and the school can't function, and they wanted a lot of, so it didn't really apply statewide, so we didn't do that. Industrial construction, some of the districts in Chicago do not want any industry near their schools because of safety and risk, they feel. We thought that was a local zoning issue, not a state issue for the association. IDEA is going to be 50 years old, and so they were recommending that we update some of the stuff in that, and that's a national program, not a state program. So we said we're not going to work on that. We did do bus drivers. A lot of districts have their own buses, and they're having a terrible time getting bus drivers. And now the training for a bus driver has to be done by a certified person, and there's not enough locations nor individuals certified to train bus drivers. And so it takes 5 days in class, and so they want to go back to the pre-February 2022 rules. And so we're going to discuss that. And there was resource officers. Every year we have this conversation because school districts don't have the money to hire the officers. And so we're talking about grants for the state, making some kind of recommendation that the state provide money for these officers. And so those are the two that we came up with. Interesting conversations, a diverse state, diverse ideas, diverse needs, and thank you for allowing me to do that.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, administrative reports. Superintendent, Dr. Obleski.
Thank you, Mr. Sarver. At your packet, or at your station, you have a copy of the status report on the completion of action items for the 120 Promise, our strategic plan. It's hard to believe we're the halfway point from when this was officially approved back in 2020. Over the summer, the Superintendent's Council spent some time going through and assessing each of the 57 action items to be able to give a report, to prepare a report for the board to be able to indicate whether that particular action item has either been completed or it's established, ongoing or just started or not started. What I'd like to do for this month is just to give this to you, to take between now and next month to spend more time to carefully review it. And then we're going to have members of the leadership team that will speak in more detail next month for discussion with the board. The only thing I would point your attention to is sort of the summary report card on the very last page. I think this kind of gives a nice overview. And I think it's also a point of celebration for us as well, because COVID certainly has been or was a big part of what we have had to navigate the last couple of years from the time that this was adopted. And as you can see, of the 57 action items, 45.7% of them are in the completed or established rankings, which I think is very commendable of our team and our staff, to be able to keep moving forward in making progress. We have 31.5%, or 18 of the 57 are ongoing and started, and 13 of the 57, or 22.8%, are not started. The only thing I'll point out is of those remaining 13 that haven't been started, there are 5 action items that we're recommending we table. If you may recall, when we adopted this a number of years ago, part of what we wanted to do at points like this is, it's a living document, and there are things that we thought were priorities at that time. Things change, priorities change, and there's 5 items on the list that we're recommending to table from this particular strategic plan. So look forward to having you review this between now and next month, and we'll spend more time talking about it then. The district audit is going to begin on Monday. Kudos to Mrs. Whalen, Mrs. Riva, Mrs. Snell, Mrs. Bergagna, Mrs. Franklin. There's a whole host of people that are involved in being able to pull information together in preparation for Newkirk and Associates. And so that will be taking place next week. We had a very successful opening of school. Kids have been in session now for 4 days, and it feels like it's been 3 months already. The only thing I want to point out as far as our student body is to let you know where we are with our enrollment numbers. So this was as of last Friday. We have 1,222 students enrolled. That excludes the 8th graders. With the 8th graders, we have 1,287 students. There are just a little over 300 enrollments in each of the 4 grade levels. But one interesting statistic that we're beginning to see increase is the percent of students that are free and reduced. And we had been hovering in the low 40s the last decade or so. This year, currently, we're at 47%. So we're certainly seeing that particular statistic beginning to increase. We had a number of FOIA requests that we received since our meeting last month. You have those listed in my reports, and those were either granted in full or there was a partial granting based on what information that they were asking for. But generally, most of the requests that we tend to get are looking for staff directory information, which seems to be fairly typical. Do you want me to wait until we get to the action item for the budget, or would you like me for us to kind of do that now? Okay. What I'd like to do for Mrs. Whalen and I is to give an overview for the district budget. So at your station, you have a copy, paper clipped together of the budget. The cover page is the resolution, and then you have a kind of a summary page, and then you have the detail of every line item in the budget. We are not going to go over every single line item. Well, we could do that if you'd like, but we're prepared to do that. I'm going to start the overview. One is we're very pleased that we are presenting another balanced budget to the Board of Education. We are projecting a nominal surplus of $273,469 in the operating funds at the end of the fiscal year. I do want to point out that we are projecting a deficit of almost $150,000 in transportation. Mrs. Whalen will give a little more detail in terms of why you're seeing that this year and why it's probably can be projected the next couple of years based on some of the things that we need to accomplish. The one piece that I want to share, and this is impacting not only LP High School, but it's every single district in the state of Illinois. These last several years, our corporate personal property replacement tax has skyrocketed. 2 years ago, it doubled from what we were projecting, and it remained the same. Actually, it went up a little bit more last fiscal year. You may recall in prior presentations I've shared that we've been told that 2025 is when it's supposed to start going back down to whatever normal numbers are. I can't give you a really good explanation in terms of why we had a big decrease. My understanding in terms of why it spiked is because the state kind of changed the formula for how that number was calculated. But it dropped this year, almost 30%. So that translates to $1.27 million in revenue that we are not receiving this year that we received last year. I'm going to say it one more time, $1.27 million. That's a significant hit for our district as well as districts across the state. So what you're going to begin hearing is that we're tightening the belt. Because we want to make sure that as being good stewards of the district resources, that as we look at kind of what our priorities are for this year, that we're kind of doubling down and making sure that these are essential priorities. Now, the money that's been set aside for the projects, the sports complex, the stadium work, Lori will go over some of those lists there. That money is secured. Because that money has been issued, it's been targeted for that, and it's earmarked for that. But as we begin looking at some of our other priorities, we'll have more updates that will begin talking in depth with the Finance Committee, then through the board, on what are some of the longer range implications for what we need to begin doing as far as establishing, revisiting priorities and making sure that not only we're communicating that at the board level, but then just as important with the administrative team, and then bringing that down to department chairs and the entire staff, so there is full awareness of what we're looking at. So with that as an overview, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Whalen.
So if you look through, and this is just going to be a broad overview, nothing is wildly unusual in 10 and 20. You'll see ESSER money coming in and being spent. There will be a minor adjustment that comes in the final presentation in September, because we will have people that will be going through lane changes yet. Those are allowed through September 1st. So the first batch is in, 4 more appeared on my desk this morning, and then, but we'll have the rest of those coming in. So the 91,000 that's positive in the ed fund, that will go down with those lane changes that come through. But nothing out of the ordinary in 30, 50, 70, and 80 funds. So if we look at Fund 40, to give additional context to that, we're now at a point where we're beginning to see that our bus costs are creeping higher than the transportation revenue coming in. So that deficit that's in there of almost 150,000, the majority of that represents vehicles that we're going to be replacing. Now, we had talked about 4, that was before we knew the exact number of the CPPRT, so it's down to 1. So hopefully between 2 bus companies, we will be able to get 1, plus a driver's ed vehicle. And then, but as you look forward, those future years, the fund balance reserve, so if you look at the fund balance on there, we're projecting an ending fund balance of a little over $1 million, which is a fairly strong balance for the transportation fund. And so we'll be eating into that in order to continue to replace those fleet vehicles, which is an item on the strategic
Yes.
plan.
Yep. And those vehicles need to be replaced.
Yes, they
Because they are now becoming expensive. It's no longer nickels and dimes, it's quarters and half dollars.
Yes. Then moving on to Fund 60, you can see that we've projected close to 7 million of expenditures. So this includes the wrapping up of the sports complex, which would be the baseball, softball, soccer turf, and additional tennis courts. The concrete work in the stadium, which is, as Mr. Ferrari stated, the small work that was done this year, but then the majority of that work that will be done next summer. The weight room renovation, and then track resurfacing. In Fund 90, the projects that are included in the 950,000. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time breathing. These projects are currently identified, and they will be mapped out and prioritized by Dr. Robleski, Tim Tominello, and Mike Kometz. And that includes finishing the tennis court rebuild and finishing the East Gym water redirection project to make sure that that doesn't continue to leak. Transition house roof and gutters, the East Gym parking lot, the counseling office work, which includes replastering and painting those areas. And then Tim's identified some general concrete work around the facility, and the Dolan Billing elevator, which would be then also a shared cost that we would share with the rest of the schools that partner with us. So just some general concepts to keep in mind as we are sitting in this waiting period to approve the final budget. I don't think I can underestimate the importance of that CPPRT and how it's very unclear and unsure what that could look like. We are headed into an election year, and so that always means fun and wonderful things with finances, markets, and inflation can still be a factor. And we're hopeful that EAV will continue its steady increase, but our EBF tier increases have definitely shrunk over time. And just a quick reminder that there are contract negotiations in the spring for teachers and support staff, so that will impact things going forward as well. So, as you're looking over the multiple accounts, if you have any questions, you can ask them now, or you can email me or call me.
I don't have any questions.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you. You good?
I'm good.
Okay. Any questions for Dr. Robleski? Okay. Principal report, Mrs. Cushing?
Good evening. the school year. I'll share a little bit more. We used a sports theme to kind of put the pressure on and treat the whole school year as if it's the final 2 minutes of the game. So if you hear anyone in the community or the staff talking about that, just wanted you to be aware of that. That will be our focus for the remainder of the school year. We also had a great turnout at our freshman orientation day. Lots of students showed up. We had a very successful day. We didn't really lose a lot of students on the very first day of school, so I think that's our indicator that all went well. We also had one other item that I wanted to highlight on my report there was our evaluations have changed, not the tool itself. But the process, we've switched over now to the mandate from the state there of the 3-year cycle for our tenured teachers. So I would want to publicly thank our para committee. They got together over the summer to do all of the conversations to make sure that we were aligned on all the cycles there and agreements. And we have reached our agreement, and everything is set for the school year. So we are good to go with those. I think we're going to have a great school year. I'm looking forward to it, and things are already off to a great start. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Cushing. Director of Athletics Activities, Mr. Hanson.
Good evening. How's it going? The exhale is not because I'm nervous. It's been the first 6 weeks here. It's been a whirlwind. You know, everybody's been great. The welcoming has been great. All the team members back here have been really, really patient with me and understanding. But I'm super, super impressed with the resources and just the welcome from all the people. So I thank you guys and thank you guys for welcoming me to what's a great school. I've been in a lot of schools, and this school is definitely a very, very good school. Athletics-wise, you know, it's August. It's kind of the beginning of the year. We're coming off dead week, but all of our fall sports did start on August 7th. We're in full swing here. The only 2 teams that have participated in the contest right now are boys and girls golf, but that's going to quickly change as we get into next week. You know, next week kind of kicks off everything: volleyball, football, cross country, et cetera, soccer. They all start playing contests next week, so we're looking forward to that. But currently we're in the middle of back to school bash week, so our director of activities, Jason Miller, has done a great job filling me in, keep me up to speed with everything, but he's got everything organized, and the days have been fun, exciting. We're getting geared up for Friday night, which is Meet the Cavs night. It should be a great night where our kids can show the community what they've been working on all summer. So really excited to be here, looking forward to working with all of you and having a great year. So thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. The Director of the ACC, Mr. Minkin, is not here this evening, but his report is in your packet. Director of Communications, Mr. Baker.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Good to see you all. Really just still just been busy straight through the summer, continuing the website migration process that we were talking about last time we saw each other. All the initial kind of design decisions have been made. So right now the ball is kind of in final sites court to do the development work. Meanwhile, we're doing our online kind of training and stuff, so that we're ready when the new site rolls out, that we'll be able to dive right into it. In the meantime, though, we're still staying active on the existing website. Gotta thank a lot of our admin assistants around the building who really stepped up as we kind of dove into making some overhauls of how we handle the public-facing calendar. On the outside, it probably doesn't seem like a lot, but internally there's lots of calendar decisions that are happening all the time on how we manage what's going out to the community, what kind of information we're sharing inside for the events that are constantly happening in this building. There's really so much throughout the day, from scheduling meeting rooms to fields to everything else in between for both our own use as well as community events. So there's a lot that goes into that, and we've kind of made some changes to how we do that public-facing piece, and people like Mrs. Riva and so many others have really dove into learning something new, and we're starting to see that come together. The other big piece I want to mention, I actually didn't have it in my report, but much like all of you, the LP Foundation took the summer off, at least with no official meetings. But there was no lack of activity as we're getting ready to bring the Harlem Wizards back to campus this fall. So there have been a lot of subcommittee meetings. Mrs. DePape, the chairman for the foundation, is in my office more than me some days, it feels like, coming in to get things ready, having meetings, just putting a lot of work into that. So you're going to be hearing more about that as the fall comes on, as we get closer to November. So just want to put that on your radar, so you can be looking forward to that, as well as some of the other foundation activities that'll hit right off as we get into the school year. So,
And Mr. Baker, would you talk just briefly in terms of the plans that we're putting forth with the parking drop, or the student drop off and pickup?
Sure. As among the things that we've been discussing as we've gotten into the school year already, we're just been noticing some pickup drop-off time issues as parents are kind of coming along 6th Street, especially in the mornings. We haven't traditionally closed down this section of 6th Street along the East Gym like we do in the afternoons. Following some discussions at our last superintendent's council meeting, we decided we need to try something different to really increase the safety for our students, make things easier for our bus drivers, and hopefully make the flow easier for our parents who are picking and dropping off kids. As we talked about in the meeting, perhaps once upon a time, everybody wanted to be dropped off 3 blocks away so they weren't seen with their parents. Now everyone wants to get dropped off right in front of the building. So it's just causing some traffic issues. So we're actually working through some changes to that process, and right now, just in the past couple of days, we've been building some maps and some plans that we're going to be sharing out with our families over the next week once we kind of finalize everything. So if you do hear anything from parents, that's kind of be the big change. Hoping to make that easier, really try to keep as much of the drop-offs and pickups down to 5th Street as possible to make really 6th Street mainly bus traffic spaces. Hopefully makes it easier for our students, better for our neighbors, and safer for everyone around. And easier on our SRO and other police officers who are circling campus before and after school for traffic issues. So.
Well, I want to give kudos to Matt as well. So this was just yesterday we had this this conversation, and he's already put together a preliminary map design that we're going to be pushing out to all of our family members as well. And so, all the team members have provided some really good input on that, but certainly wanted to express appreciation for pulling it all together.
A big piece, but as we talked about in the meeting the other day, after a couple of COVID years, we haven't really talked to our parents about proper pickup, drop-off procedures. So it's a good time to remind everybody about the right and safe way to go about that. That's it, all in the works.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, new business. I need a motion to amend the agenda to add 10.18.
So moved.
You need to read what it is.
10.18 is approval of the LP Sports Complex Phase 2 partial occupancy permits for tennis and soccer.
Second.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Murbutt?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yeah.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. I need a motion to adopt the resolution 2024-1 approving the tentative LPHS fiscal year 24 budget and place it on public display.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Murbutt?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. I need a motion to adopt the resolution 2024-2 approving the tentative ACC fiscal year 24 budget and place it on public display.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mr. Murbutt?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. I need a motion to adopt resolution 2024-3 approving the regulated expense reimbursements.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr. Murbutt?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. I need a motion for approval of the Mako copy machine contract for 23-24.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes.
I can make a quick comment on the contract.
Before I talk?
Before, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
10.5?
Yeah, just a clarification, not a clarification, but just a confirmation that City Center has agreed to a 5% increase in all language recommendations that we did have as a draft in the contract, in the packet. Yeah, thanks.
No problem. 10.5, approval of the, I need a motion for approval of the athletic training contract with City Center Rehabilitation West Incorporated from August 1st, 2023 through the end of the 2025-2026 school year.
So moved.
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. I need a motion for approval of the 2023-2024 differential assignments.
So, second?
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. 10.7, I need a motion for approval of the following LP Sports Complex Phase 2 change orders. A, Byron Jones. Change order number 7, 2 single-barrel batting cages for softball fields, $166,000. Change order number 8, baseball warning track, $126,430. And change order number 9, ABI Force Infield Groomer and Laser Grader, $28,000. B, Visiting Construction Concession Stand and Press Box, change order 2, Wall Hung Toilets and Carrier, $3,954.85, and change order 3, additional conduit and power for the PA system and for future security systems, $11,643.43.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. I need a motion for approval of the following board policies. A, approval of the press policy issued 1/12, June 2023, except for policy 6.40, AP Administrative Procedure, Curriculum Development. B, approval of revised policy 6.40 AP Administrative Procedure, Curriculum Development. And C, approval to eliminate policy 6.40 AP 1 Curriculum Administrative Procedures.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. I need a motion for approval of the blood-borne pathogen exposure control plan for 2023-2024 school year.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. A motion for approval of the district's annual review of the safety plans, protocols, procedures, and school safety drill report for the 23-24 school year.
So moved. Second?
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. I need a motion for approval of the employee computer purchase program for the 2023-2024 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. I need a motion for approval to appoint the Building and Grounds Committee members to consider nominations to name the LP baseball field and make recommendation to the Board of Education for Board Policy 4-150.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. 10.13, I need approval. Need a motion for approval to establish the following activity accounts: Environmental Committee and the Cab Shop.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. I have a motion to approve the following retirements. Mrs. Pam Ingalls, choral accompanist, effective at the conclusion of the 23-24 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. A motion for approval of the following resignations. Ms. Lori Whalen, Business Manager, effective September 15th, 2023. Ms. Janelle Merwicki, Paraprofessional, effective June 24th, 2023. And Mr. Leonard Trio, Assistant Boys Soccer Coach, effective August 8th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. I need a motion for approval of the following appointments.
So moved.
Mr. Mac Lipshinsky, Fall Cardio Room Supervisor, effective August 21st, 2023 through November 10th, 2023. Mr. Mike Haggerty, Volunteer Assistant Baseball Coach, effective for the 23-24 school year. Mr. Leonard Trio, Volunteer Assistant Boys Soccer Coach, effective for the 23-24 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. A motion for approval to allow the Knights of Columbus to conduct the Tootsie Roll candy sale on Friday, October 6th, 2023 at the LP football game at Howard Fellows Stadium.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes.
That's LP Ottawa.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, good
So
Tootsie
start
Rolls.
pooning out.
Good night for a Tootsie Roll.
Let's bring them over and get some money. Let's get some of that pirate money, man. There's nothing wrong with that. I have a motion for approval of the LP Sports Complex Phase 2 partial occupancy permits for tennis and soccer.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes. I need a motion to go into executive closed session. A, discussion of minutes of the meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meeting Act, whether for purpose of approval by the body of the minutes or the semi-annual review of the minutes. And B, imminent pending litigation with open session and possible action items following.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Murbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Pacetto?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mrs. Taliani?
Yes.
Dr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mrs. Alcorn?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes.
All right. Yep.
Well,